Billie Eilish, the world's a little blurry rating, verdict, worth your focus Zappa rating, verdict, compellingly Frank Pele rating, verdict, for footy fans, a ball there is quite a lot dividing Billie Eilish and Frank Zappa. More than 6 decades between their respective births, gender, a fair amount of facial hair and, of course, the fact that she is very much alive and he is very much. Yet a pair of documentaries, coincidentally released within a few days of one another, reveal them both emerging from Los Angeles as true original. Eilish has already shown herself to be at least as complicated and idiosyncratic as Zappa was, if less sure of her place in the firmament. But then she's still a teenager. This prodigiously talented singer-songwriter with 76 million Instagram followers and the James Bond theme already to her name, doesn't turn 20 until Billie Eilish, the world's a little blurry. The subtitle invokes one of her lyrics, referencing her mental health struggles, offers an intriguing insight into her extraordinary. Well over 2 hours long, the film could have used a proper trim, but then couldn't we all these days? None of AL's zealous fans will mind being locked down all evening with Jay Cutler's documentary for company. That life of hers is all the more extraordinary for being, in many respects, so conspicuously ordinary. The film follows her on tour and working on her debut album, but for large chunks of it she's in the unremarkable family home, where we see her back chatting to her mother, horsing around with her brother and learning from her father how to wash her car, having just passed her driving test. Admittedly, all I want is a matte black Dodge Challenger is not a realizable yearning given to many teenagers from middle-class suburbia. And Terry's another telling moment when Nail's brother and musical collaborator, Phineas, shows her how many Spotify downloads. Is that million? Oh my god. I thought it was 1,000. I was, like, for the record, the figure is 720. That's nuts, dude, says Phineas. Nuts, indeed. But this film's message is that she's being properly nurtured and protected by her parents, unlike so many prodigy, and also, that she's entirely typical of her generation, not atypical. There's a sweet sequence when she meets her childhood idol Justin Bieber for the first time, and is overwhelmed. How does she feel when Bieber lets it be known he'd like to feature on her album? He could ask me to kill my dog and I. The best music documentaries strike a balance between delighting fans and they can't afford to bore either of those contingents. Neither Cutler's film, nor Alex Winter's Zappa get that quite right. They are really for devotees. But that doesn't mean they're not worth watching, or at least dipping into, if you have even a passing interest in their subject. I can't claim ever to have been much of a fan of Frank Zappa and his band The Mothers of Invention, but Zappa assiduously archived his own life in Winter, less famous as a filmmaker than he is for playing opposite Keanu Reeves in the Bill and Ted movies, has been given irresistible. Besides, anyone who collaborated with symphony orchestras, John Lennon and Alice Cooper, has to be worth serious documentary. There are lots of terrific clips, and it's worth concentrating just so that you don't miss my favorite malapropism of the year. To some people, says musician Ray White, the truth is like Gaelic to it. That's definitely what he says. I rewound 3 times to check. There are some advantages to not watching films in cinemas. Zappa, who died of prostate cancer in 1993, wasn't one of those vampires recoiling from. If anything, he had a tendency to be too truthful. Some of his lyrics were inflammatory. He all too cheerfully admitted on tour dalliances to his wife Gail, extensively interviewed here, and, admirably, he didn't mind anyone knowing that he disapproved of drugs. It was a stance lampooned on the TV show Saturday Night Live in 1978. What a mind-blower, cried John Belushi, that Zappa wasn't high while working on his 1966 album. Drug abuse loomed large in Asif Kapadia's brilliant 2019 documentary Diego Maradona. Happily, the private life of one of the other principal claimants to the unofficial title greatest footballer of all time has been less populated by demons. But a comparatively untroubled existence is not always a gift to filmmakers, so Ben Nicholas and David Trejo do a fine job with Pele, focusing on how the great Brazilian, now 80, and born within a couple of months of Frank Zappa, as it happens, wasn't merely a symbol of his nation's coming of age in the 1960s, but actually fascinating stuff. Billie Eilish, The World's a Little Blurry is on Apple TV Plus from Zappa is available on Altitude.film, and Pele is on Netflix. Just when you thought it safe to go back to the salon, the scheduled reopening of hairdressing salons in April will give you time to watch The Stylist, a gory thriller about a psychotic hairdresser, without worrying too much that your next layered bob might be your lot. Jill Jeff Argisian's polished film features a fine lead performance from Najara Townsend as Claire, who works in a Kansas City salon where her hairstyling skills are second to none, but mask an unhinged person. Claire is lonely. Her only social interaction is with her clients, who little suspect that the attractive redhead they see in the mirror is plotting to drug one of Claire's regulars, Olivia. leads to a bond of sorts, a growing obsession on Claire's part and a creepy denouement to a film that isn't exactly unblemished, in a city where a series of deaths and disappearances clearly point to a serial killer at work. Yet expect the local cops to be a tad more visible, but is nevertheless stylishly shot and classily. The Owners is another thriller verging on horror, set in the English country. It is very nearly as gory as The Stylist but not remotely as good. Despite the presence of young Game of Thrones star Maisie Williams and a couple of screen veterans, it's always a pleasure to see. In Sylvester McCoy and Rita Tushingham, they play a retired doctor and his dementia-stricken wife who return to their grand, secluded home one evening to find that it has been broken into by four young scoundrels. But the heavy-handed twist, far too predictable for this to count as a spoiler, is that the frail old homeowners gradually gain the upper hand over their assailants, turning out to be not at all what they say. The Last Premiere is about a series of 17th-century masterpieces that also are not what the film chronicles. The remarkable true story of Dutch artist Han van Meegeren, Guy Pearce, one of whose premieres was bought for a fortune by Herman Goring, and the work of military investigator Joseph Pillar, Klaus Bang, in exposing him not as a traitor for selling the nation's treasures to the Nazis, but as if told in detail in the Mail last Saturday. It's a thrilling tale which, alas, is given somewhat clunky treatment here, not helped by an uncharacteristically wooden, ill-at-ease performance from Bang, usually such a charismatic actor. All three films are available on digital platforms from